Yeah, I'm here at the Center of Computing History in Cambridge, and on this table are two very unique Sinclair QL items. On top it's the so-called QL motherboard, which is in fact not the motherboard of the computer, but the motherboard of the expansion system with its interface card, plus on the bottom here the QL wafer, which is based on Wafer-Scale technology. Two very unique items which were donated by Nick Terry, a former Sinclair Research employee, and those items are so unique that one needs to wear gloves to touch them. So it's like in an operation room, surgery. And we first start here with the QL motherboard and its expansion card. The expansion card, called QL bus buffer card version 1, goes into the Sinclair QL and is connected by the 64 pin expansion bus, and basically it buffers the expansion signals, and with this flat ribbon cable goes to the so-called QL motherboard, which is self-powered. As it looks from the connector, it's self-powered with regular QL power supply, and it offers 4 independent expansion slots, so one could add memory, floppy disk interface, hard disk interface, or other input-output devices onto this so-called motherboard. Now let's turn the unit so that we can see the backside. And on the backside, soldering side, some wires, so they need to do some modifications. On the buffer card, it looks like no modifications to the motherboard itself. No printing of a year, so it all has to be guessed, but I guess this is somewhere 1984 or 1985. Very nice, very unique piece of hardware made by Sinclair Research for the QL. And here we have a plastic bag with the so-called QL wafer, and I will now carefully take it out of the bag. I place the camera here. The unit is only allowed to be touched with gloves, so be very careful, so that the plastic, which is also very unique, doesn't get any fingerprints. So we can start with a kind of a flyover here. Really very nice looking expansion to the QL. Industrial design of this plastic case was done by Rick Dickinson. And electronic engineering done by the electronic engineers at Sinclair Research. So now we turn it to the back side, and we see it has 4 screws, and I will ask the museum if I'm allowed to open it for maybe a second video. But now we look at it from the outside. What I see is that most likely part of the device is missing, because as you can see, this part would go inside the QL. So this goes inside the QL, and it should have some electronic connection to the QL. But all the connections we see are on that side at this specific unit, so to me it's unclear how it was connected to the QL. But because it never was released to the market, and this is a prototype unit, it is unknown how this was ever connected. But you see on the golden contacts that it was connected to something. And here there's a paper label with a number on it, 632301 DNSS. Not sure if this label is from the museum or from Sinclair Research. At least this paper here is from the museum, and states date code 2018.48, most likely week 48 of that year. So we have another look here, and we cannot see any connections here, but we see there's a board inside, and eventually, hard to know, hard to say. Eventually there was a flat ribbon here going to somewhere for development. The unit itself, the plastic looks like close to mass production. There were no 3D printing back in the mid-1980s, and it doesn't look like it was made from one piece of plastic with CNC. It looks it was really done as an injection molding plastic shell. So that's it for now. I don't have much more information about those two units. Maybe can only tell that from what I remember, the wafer, the first one which should reach the market, was planned to be 0.5 megabyte of memory expansion, battery buffered, so it's like a permanent RAM disk or something, and that later stages were planned for several megabytes, so working similar to hard disk drives but being purely silicium. Okay, that's it for now. ARGH QLvsJAGUAR at the Center of Computing History in Cambridge. QL forever, take care, enjoy life, and all the best.